Alright guys, last tutorial video for this is going to be tiny databases. Tiny databases are going to be used when you want to take data from one screen and have it reappear on the next screen. So I started a new file, I called it TinyDB, just so that I know where the code is if I need to go get it again. On this first screen, I'm going to put in a label. I'm going to put in a text box. Underneath that, I'm going to add a button. I'm going to add another button, and then I'm going to scroll down over here, and underneath storage, we're looking for the one that looks like a stack of pancakes. It's called TinyDB. This is an invisible component, so it doesn't matter where I drop it. It shows up down here at the bottom. So for my label one, my text box one, I'm leaving those alone. This button one, I'm going to rename that one. It's going to be called Store. And I'm going to change the text for button one to say Store. And then my button 2, I'm going to rename to say Next Page. And then I'm also going to make my text say Next Page for that one. So I've got my text for label 1. That's actually going to end up saying something like text here. That's where I want someone to type. So text here. I don't care if it stays label 1 over here. Of course, a text box is where you can actually type. Store will store my value. Next page goes to the next page. Come up here to the top, I need to add a screen 2. I'm okay with it staying named like that, and I'm going to hit OK. Now, it automatically brings me to screen 2. And on my screen 2, I want to add a way to show what it is I'm storing. So I'm going to add a label. And then since I'm using a tiny database to store the value, I also have to pull in a tiny database on this screen as well. So now I've got my tiny database and my label over here in my designer view. All right, we're going to go back to screen 1 and switch over to our blocks view, and we're going to code this. So we're going to do store, and when store is clicked, so when I type something into that text box and I hit the store button, I want to set my label 1 text, so dark green, set label 1 text, to whatever came out of that text box 1. So I'm looking for text box 1.text. There it is. Then I need to call my database. So I'm going to go down here and I'm going to do call TinyDB1 store value, and then that's going to go here. Zoom in on that a little bit for you. Now the tag is going to be text, right? So in here, we're going to write the word text, spelling matters, and the value to store is going to be whatever I had put into that text box. I'm going to find text box.text. There it is. So what this does is it says that when I click that store button, it takes the label that the text box we typed into, calls the database to store whatever that text is that we wrote, and that's the value of it. Okay, then when I click the next page button, so when next page click, I need to open another screen name or another screen, and the screen name will be screen 2. Sorry, that's in control. So I'm going to go open another screen, screen name, change my drop down to screen 2. So that's all the code I need on my first screen. Now I need to go to my screen 2 and tell it how to get that value. So I'm going to change to screen 2 here. And I'm going to go over to screen 2 in my blocks and say that when screen 2 initializes, which means when screen 2 first opens up, I need to get the label. So I'm going to set my label 1 text to, and I need to call that database. So we did have one of these puzzle pieces before. Now we need to call the database. The tag that we're going for is text, just like what we put on the front screen. Again, spelling matters. And I'm going to leave this empty because what this bottom one does, it says that if my database didn't have a value there at all, what did I want to appear? And in this case, I want to leave it empty. When you test this on your tablet, you'll be able to see that your word that you put into your text box on the first screen will now show up on the second screen. And you can do this with all kinds of things like variables. You cannot do this with images.